My name is Brenda Meller. I am your host. This is my series, which I call Enthusiastically Self-Employed, where I bring on inspiring and amazing people to share a variety of different topics with you. And today, this way over here, today I have with me Dr. Sina Smith. Hey, Dr. Sina, how are you doing today?
Thanks for thanks for joining us over here. That was fun.
Yeah. Hey, it happens. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. It seemed like it was a StreamYard little hiccup, but when you are an experienced professional, you don't let your feathers get ruffled. When we have technology issues, you have workarounds because we're adults. That's what we do. We figure out little workarounds and life happens, technology happens. The good thing is I've been active in on different platforms, Zoom and StreamYard and other places for so long. If one doesn't work, we go to the other one. Worst case scenario, we would have just rescheduled, but I had been looking forward to this topic today. I know so many people in my network had reached out. Even an hour ago, Dr. Sina, I had one person saying, I can't make it and I'm really interested in the topic. Can I watch the playback? And I said, yes, absolutely. Without further ado, I want to introduce you. And I know we know each other from Innovation Women. We've had a couple of preliminary chats, but I'd like to give you the floor right now, Dr. Sina. And if you could tell us your name, what is your business, and what do you do?
Thanks so much for having me, Brenda. I'm really excited to be here and to share some tips with folks. My name is Sina Smith. I'm a medical doctor and a licensed acupuncturist, and I practice functional, integrative, and culinary medicine in Chicago. I'm also a national and international speaker and an author, and I finished my first book. I'm working on my second book, which is going to be about using face diagnosis to help get what you want in terms of communication. So I do a lot of different things. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
The topic today is self-care strategies for self-employed people. When I pick speakers, I always pick people selfishly that I want to learn from. And I when I encourage them to think about on their topics is something that can be relevant to those of us who are self-employed. So this was like perfect because we've just come out of this big old thing called the pandemic, which has been really stressful. And even if we hadn't, when you are self-employed, you're dealing with stress day in and day out. Self-care can be very important to helping to alleviate some of those, the effects of stress. Dr. Sina, what advice do you have for us on self-care? What do you want to share today?
The first thing I want to talk about is the power of sticky notes. I have hundreds of sticky notes all around my computer. And here we go. We've got pink, we've got yellow, we've got green. And these things really help me to do self-care, especially on days when I am working from home and sitting at my computer. It's really easy to get lost, especially as a small business owner, because if nobody's interrupting you for a business or for a meeting or something like that, you're just sitting there staring at your screen all day. So looking at a hot pink sticky note on the side of my screen helps me to remember to drink a glass of water and to go eat some lunch and to move my body. So that's the first little tip that I wanted to share.
I love it. And I'm a post-it note person too. If I were to turn my camera around the other way and show you my office right now, I've got post-it notes with to-dos over here. I've got some sticking on the front of my laptop. And I love the idea. I once heard something from someone, they said, write your top three things to do on a post-it note and put it on your laptop because I think that really helps to give you some focus. But you're speaking to my heart here, Dr. Sina, because I am definitely a post-it note gal. So any other advice you want to share with us?
One of the first things that I put on my post-it note in the morning is drink water. That
Yeah.
always very top of my list.
Hmm.
And something that I've learned over the years is you're dehydrated when you wake up in the morning. You haven't had any liquid for 8 to 10 hours, most of us overnight. And so when I get up in the morning, I always make sure that I have a glass or two of water in the bathroom. I'm already there. And so as I'm getting ready in the morning, getting ready to hop in the shower, drying my hair, all that kind of stuff, getting my makeup on, I'm drinking a lot of water. So it doesn't really matter if I go to the bathroom a couple of times while I'm already in there and getting ready. It saves me a lot of time later on, and it resolves the dehydration from overnight with no water. And then throughout the day, I always make sure that I have a large glass of water, or I use one of those enormous sippy cups that's by my desk. And each time you get up to go to the bathroom, you drink another big glass of water. So by the time that processes through your system, it's another 2 or 3 hours, right? So then you're constantly keeping yourself hydrated. And hydration isn't just about getting rid of toxins, it's also about keeping your blood flow going, which is really important when you're trying to use your brain all day long.
Yeah.
Drinking that water is just really invaluable.
So let me ask you a question about that because I've always had a very active bladder. One might say it's an overactive bladder. It's so enthusiastic about being active all the time. And especially after children, my bladder is very active and overactive as well. So when you say drink a whole glass of water, I almost get a little bit of anxiety about that. Can we drink sips? Would sips be better than a whole glass if we're not drinking anything right now, or do we really get the benefits only if we're drinking a whole glass? What do you think?
I So yes, it's okay to just drink sips,
Mm,
but the problem with just sips is that you tend to get dehydrated if you just are sipping on a glass of water over the course of the day, right? You're just getting a tablespoon or two into your body. You're not really getting that 8 ounces. And so you don't get anywhere close to the 64 ounces minimum that you need. For most people, they need half their body weight in ounces every day in terms of water. So if you're a 200-pound person, you don't need only 64 ounces, you need 100 ounces of water in order to stay hydrated. And sipping, I just find, doesn't get there fast enough for most people. There are other things that we could digress a little bit and talk about in terms of how to keep your bladder stronger.
mm, mhm.
And the first one is, unfortunately, for most people, caffeine. So I know we have a hardcore addiction to caffeine in this country.
It's decaf though. I switched yesterday. I had too much coffee. I had a hard time falling asleep, so I switched and better latte than never. But I do like my coffee. Is decaf okay, or do we need to be off of the caffeine?
Decaf is okay. It has about 5 to 10% of the normal amount of caffeine in it, so it's not completely uncaffeinated. But the problem with caffeine is not just the diuretic effect, the fact
Yeah.
that it makes you pee out more than what you've taken in terms of the volumes, but
Hmm.
also that it makes your bladder feel jittery.
Mm,
And so if you tend to already have an overactive bladder, or if you tend to already have to go to the bathroom a lot over the course of the day, it makes that problem worse.
mm,
So there are other things that you can do first thing in the morning,
mhm,
largely have to do with water, honestly. If you drink more water first thing in the morning, you will actually need less caffeine. You'll feel more energized without that side effect of needing the caffeine. And the other thing that I know everybody has heard 100 million times from their doc is Kegels.
mm, mhm,
Kegels really help to strengthen all of those muscles that are in the area of the neck of the bladder,
mm.
be able to hold things for longer periods of time. And Kegels, I have a little K on my rear view mirror in my car. And so every time I'm sitting at a stop sign, if I'm sitting at a stoplight, if I'm stuck in traffic, if I've got a couple of minutes before I get out of the car, that little K in my rearview mirror reminds me to do a couple of Kegels.
We've got some definite benefits of drinking water to the effect of rehydrating ourselves, and you gave us some other additional techniques to think about if we have an overactive bladder, which myself included in there. We're here today talking about self-care for self-employed people, so I know there's other strategies that we can perhaps discuss as well. But I love the idea that you said of having a glass of water in your bathroom in the morning. I'll admit, Dr. Sina, I've always been like, before I go to bed at night, I'll have a big glass of water because I can make it usually all the way through the night without getting up to go to the bathroom. And I always feel like it does hydrate me before I lay down, but I've never thought about drinking a glass. I guess I shouldn't say never. I forget to think about drinking a glass of water upon rising. So I think that was a really good piece of advice. What about like throughout the day? We've talked about the morning so far. So what about throughout the day? Are there other strategies that you would recommend for us for self-care?
Yeah, along the same lines of drinking water, you really should eat some food. Your body needs food in order to metabolize things, in order to be able to keep your energy up. So it's not about even just focus and concentration and that kind of thing. If you're not putting energy into the system, you're not going to be able to get energy out.
Mhm,
And I find that with self-employed, being a self-employed person for myself, it's sometimes really hard to organize myself to make meals. I'm tired at the end of the day. I'm distracted in the middle of the day. So
mhm,
something that I've started doing that has been super helpful is meal prepping.
mm,
Now, what I mean specifically about that is to do the bulk of it on the weekend, to go grocery shopping and that kind of thing, but then also to chop the veggies that you plan to use for the next couple of days so that you can cook for yourself quickly. I
mhm.
usually spend a good chunk of my Sundays cooking so
Yeah.
that I've 2 or 3 lunch portions ready to go for the rest of the week. And what I do in particular is prep one grain and one green to use for several days. So I might peel all the kale off of the stem on the kale plant
Hmm.
and rinse that really well and chop it and then put it into a large bag in the refrigerator. Or I'll cook a big thing of brown rice or a big thing of quinoa so that I have that ready to go. And then the way that I use that, if I need a quick breakfast, is I heat up some of that quinoa in a frying pan, I throw in some of that kale, and then I crack an egg over it, and I've got a quick, healthy veggie scramble that's high in protein and ready to go in just a couple of minutes. If I need a quick lunch, then I can heat up some of that quinoa or that rice in the microwave, saute a couple of vegetables, and the greens is really what takes the most time. Yeah. If you've
Hmm.
got your vegetables and your greens are ready to rock and roll, then it takes you only 5 minutes to cook that food, which is faster than the amount of time that it takes to microwave something.
I
And
love
your
that.
food that is actually much more recognizable as food, doesn't have all the chemicals, doesn't have all the other components in it that are really just not healthy for you. And that's how I've learned to navigate things. The other thing is, in this country, we eat so many processed carbs for breakfast.
Hmm.
And what happens when we do that is there are three kinds of macronutrients: proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. So when I say carbs, I'm talking about bad carbs, things that are mostly bread based. Yeah. Scones and bagels and like all that kind of stuff. I'm not talking about vegetables and fruit. So when we eat those processed carbs, if this is my blood sugar level goes up in response to the sugar spike, but then it drops below where my baseline is. So a couple of hours later, I feel really tired. And so many of my patients come in talking about how exhausted they feel at 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. They just can't wait for lunch to happen. And it's because they haven't eaten anything really substantive. When you eat vegetables or fruit first thing in the morning, the fiber in the vegetables and fruit helps that blood sugar spike to go more slowly, and it doesn't go as high. And
Hmm.
more importantly, it doesn't drop below. So you're not craving some other quick fix halfway through your morning. You're able to sustain yourself through your morning. It's very helpful. So a little protein for breakfast and some good carbs.
So that's interesting. So I've heard about protein, eat more protein, and I'm more of a savory in the morning for breakfast than I am sweet. I used to be sweets when I was younger, but I sweets just don't sound good to me at all. So I'm more of like eggs or yogurt or cottage cheese or things like that. But you made me think about adding a fruit or vegetable to it as well. So that combination you're saying will help to fight off hunger, so you're not getting those mid-morning cravings for an additional snack or some junk food. Is that right?
That's donut time is prime 10 a.m. time. Uh, and yes, it helps to prevent those sugar cravings if you get a little protein and some healthy carbs first thing in the morning.
Good. And I love that idea of food prep. And I don't know if you saw me, I was writing down. I got my post-it notes out as you were talking. Buy a kale and quinoa because when you're describing that, I'm like, oh, didn't it sound good when she was describing it? Like you have the pre-made quinoa and the kale that's already chopped up and put a scrambled egg on top. And I'm like, ooh, I might have that for lunch today. That sounds so good. Now, too bad I only have eggs in the house and I don't have kale and quinoa. But I loved how you were describing meal prep and bringing all those items together and having a couple things ready in the fridge that are easy to go because it does if I have right now I hard boiled some eggs yesterday, Dr. Sina, and I have those to grab and go if I want some quick protein. Whereas if I didn't, I might either not eat at all until later in the day, right? And fasting may be good, maybe not. I don't know. What are your thoughts on fasting as a part of being self-employed?
Yeah, so intermittent fasting has a lot of very good research around it. We are not ruminants. So ruminants like cows and sheep and stuff like that, they have multiple stomachs. And so when they eat something, they can just put it off to the side in their second stomach and then come back and digest it later. We
Okay.
don't function that way. We only have one stomach. So when we eat something, the body has to be reactionary. It has to start digesting.
Hmm.
And digesting is not just a passive process, right? The stomach is grinding and there's all kinds of fluid and acid and enzymes and so forth that are being secreted into the tube of the gut to digest food. It's a huge drain on our metabolic energy, honestly, to be able to extract nutrients back out of that food.
Hmm.
So if we are constantly eating, that's where all of our resources are going. And there's not time to grow new muscles, to repair tissues that have been injured, to scan DNA to make sure that there aren't mutations that are happening. We're constantly in reactionary mode.
Okay.
So intermittent fasting allows the digestive system to have a break,
Mm.
right? For most people, a 12-hour fast is pretty reasonable. 7 o'clock at night until 7 o'clock in the morning, or 8 and 8, or something along those lines. It also, if you get into the habit of doing that, you're not tempted to eat ice cream at 10 o'clock at night and give yourself a big sugar spike right when you're trying to calm down and go to bed.
That was me last night. We had some leftover. I took my daughter and her friend out to Dairy Queen over the weekend. She had the leftover pumpkin pie blizzard. And I'm a pie gal, so I kept looking at it in the freezer. I said, Charlotte, if you're not going to eat it, I'll eat it. And it was probably 9:30 at night, and I'm eating this ice cream going, I probably shouldn't, forgetting the fact that we were going to be talking about this the next morning, but it was so good. But yeah, I agree that sugar spike before bed. Maybe that's why I had a hard time falling asleep last night. I don't know.
It is. You're exactly right. That's exactly right. And I think that's one of the reasons then we get into the vicious cycle of sugar at night, right before bed, hard to fall asleep, hard to wake up in the morning because we didn't get enough sleep. Now we
True.
need some caffeine and sugar to get the day started again. And it becomes this kind of vicious cycle. Sugar, high sugar in the bloodstream tells the body that you are in a fight or flight mode.
Mm-hmm.
So it's part of the sympathetic nervous system. That's part of what the sympathetic nervous system does, is it elevates the blood sugar. So when we eat a big bolus of sugar, when we eat some ice cream, or we do a lot of sugary snacking right before bed, it tells the body like, okay, we really need to be awake now. And it makes it much more difficult to fall asleep.
Yeah.
So going back to your question about intermittent fasting, yes, that's another kind of added benefit, is you're not only giving yourself sugars that then turn into fats overnight, and most people don't want that or need that,
Mm-hmm.
but also is making it much more difficult for you to sleep, which gives you that slump then the next morning and makes it hard to focus and have a productive day the next day.
Yeah, that's interesting how that whole cycle kind of works together. Now, as you were talking about the intermittent fasting, I was wondering, for me, it's easier for me to fast during the day. During the workday, I'll have some days where I just get so busy with work and I'm so fascinated with the work that I'm doing. I'll have a cup of coffee in the morning and I will have some water. Today I have some water with a little bit of orange juice in it to give a little bit of flavor to it. But I'll be drinking that throughout the day and I will skip lunch entirely and it'll be like 2, 3 in the afternoon. And now I'm like ravenously hungry because I haven't eaten all day. But I find for me, it's easier for me to fast in the beginning part of the day than 3 o'clock on. It's really hard. If someone said you can't eat after 3 o'clock today, I would probably go crazy for the rest of the day. Should we be listening to our body as it relates to when we fast, or are there better times to fast? What do you think about that?
There are absolutely better times to fast. And I will tell you a little secret,
Hmm.
and that your body starts to make enzymes, at digestive enzymes in particular, stomach acid and all that kind of thing, at the time when it is expecting you to feed it.
Hmm. Okay.
So if you tend to eat every day at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, your body's very wise and it will start to make more digestive juices and stuff like that around 1:45. The cells know what time it is. There's a system of chronobiology, chrono meaning time or clock, that the cells get into a rhythm. Now, the best time to not eat is, like I said, overnight, because that's when you're in rest and digest mode, and the body is in housekeeping function. And so that doesn't mean digest the food that is coming in new, but it means clearing out everything that is supposed to be happening, that should have moved downstream in the gut. It's really a housekeeping function.
Oh,
There's this really hoity-toity term, migrating myoelectric complex, that happens around 1 o'clock in the morning or so. It's why people have gallbladder attacks at 2 a.m. And it starts the digestive process to sweep everything downstream so that when you get up first thing in the morning, you have some stool there ready to pass. You're ready to get rid of things. Your garbage truck is ready to go out the door.
take it out to the curb. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you shift the time that you eat,
Hmm.
after just a couple of days, you'll get hungry at those times. So if you start eating breakfast in the morning at 8 o'clock or 7:30, something like that, your body after a couple of days will then get hungry at that time and will help to remind you to eat something.
Okay. That's interesting. So right now, if I'm not hungry in the morning, it might be because I'm not used to eating first thing in the morning. My body's not trained to getting hungry first thing in the morning, and that's what's allowing me to fast and get cranky by 3 p.m. And which coincidentally, I'm hungry and I'm also tired and cranky and I want a nap. It all works together with us. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on naps? I'm curious. We're self-employed. If we've got a little lull in our schedule around 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, what are your thoughts on naps?
let me get back to napping in just a second. I want to say one other thing about the crankiness that comes with not eating.
Yeah.
Serotonin, which if anybody is on an antidepressant, is usually on a serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So serotonin really helps with mood.
Hmm.
The largest source of serotonin is actually the digestive system.
Hmm.
So if you're not feeding yourself, you're literally making it harder for your brain to work and you're influencing your mood. So again, what you're observing in yourself is absolutely spot on, verified by science. Nice job. Yeah. So eating something really does make us feel better,
Hmm.
and eating something healthy will make us feel better for a longer time. All right, so let's go back to your nap question.
Yeah.
Naps, the best thing ever. So over the course of the day, your brain makes all kinds of byproducts that make you feel tired by the end of the day.
Hmm.
And a longer nap will clear out more of those metabolic byproducts and might make it a little bit more difficult to fall asleep at night. But as long as you keep it under an hour, it shouldn't really affect your ability to go to sleep at night. And
Hmm.
it really does just give you that little reset. A lot of times I find that I am craving a nap when I have been particularly stressed.
Yeah.
Uh, my cortisol is tapped out. My adrenals are just like, give me a break. And so laying down for 15 or 20 minutes. And if I find that I really can't sleep, at least putting on some soft music and closing my eyes and so forth, it helps me to reset for the afternoon. Naps are just the bomb. Everybody should have a nap time.
I love it. Thank you for the permission. And I remember when my kids were little, there was like when they were still on one nap a day, it was around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I think my body actually got used to it, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now it's like clockwork. I'll be tired. I'll look at the clock. I'm like 3 o'clock, time for a nap. And some days I can have the luxury of laying on the couch and just, like you said, for 10 or 15 minutes, closing my eyes and just laying there quietly until my dog Pepper comes and licks my face because she's, what are you doing over here? And I just turned 50 in September. I just celebrated my birth month. When you turn 50, you get the whole month, as I found out. I discovered and did that. But I had my family. I said, the only thing I want for my birthday is a hammock. So I got a hammock in the backyard, and I've now laid out there and just exactly what you've said, Dr. Sina. I just lay out there, listen to the birds chirping and the sounds around me, the leaves fluttering, and just get into almost like a twilight, not a full-on nap, but a little bit enough that once I get out of the hammock and go back, I feel like I have some energy again. So you're giving us permission to do that. Is that right?
I am giving you permission and encouraging you to do that. Naps are a wonderful kind of mindfulness exercise as well, right? Because as you're
Mhm.
laying there in that kind of halfway in, halfway out state, you're
Mhm.
allowing the creative juices, you're allowing the right side of your brain to take over a little bit. You're coming up with solutions to problems that you've otherwise been just really ruminating on and having a hard time with over the course of the day. Taking that little parasympathetic drive takes you out of the activity of push, push all day long and really pushes the reset button. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great.
I love it. Great advice. We're going to change gears here. We're going to move into some audience Q&A. I've been asking you some questions going along the way, and I want to open this up in our Zoom chat. I know everyone who's watching right now is video off and you're muted, which I want to thank you all for doing that. If you do have any questions, the good thing is we have a wide open chat. You can message it to everyone like Royce has done, or if you want to message it privately to myself or to Dr. Sina, please feel free to do. So I see a question from Royce. Thank you so much, Royce, for bouncing off of LinkedIn, coming on over to the Zoom here and watching us. And Royce is asking Dr. Sina, how about exercising? I'm tired of being attached to a screen for hours. Do you have some hacks for us? What do you think?
Yes, absolutely. I use a lot of color coding on my calendar over the course of the day
Mhm.
so that then I can set little alarms, little exercise alarms or movement alarms that go off. And I color block no more than 2 hours. Ideally, it would be every hour because truthfully, the medical literature shows over and over people cannot focus for longer than 40 to 50 minutes.
Okay.
If you're sitting there for hours and hours trying to get things done on that screen, and it is sometimes hard to break away when you're in a flow or you're writing something or something along those lines, but time blocking yourself so that you don't sit and work for longer than 2 hours. Get up, move around your apartment, move around your house, go outside, take a deep breath, open the window, let the wind blow in your face for a second,
Mhm.
have a little pretend water cooler with a friend and text a couple of people, that kind of thing. All will help to break up your day. And
Mhm.
again, you're giving your right brain time to engage in the process. When we're thinking and focusing and pushing ourselves all day long, we are using more of our logical side of our brain. When we allow ourselves a moment to just look outside and move around the room and so forth, then that right brain can engage. And honestly, it comes up with a lot of creative solutions to problems that we're working on. Now, more specifically to Royce's question,
Yeah.
I love chair yoga. And chair yoga is something that you can do while you're sitting in your chair, even working. It's like doing Kegels while you're sitting at a stop sign. You don't have to get out of the car. You can just sit right there and do your little exercises. So depending on what part of your body you want to work on, wrapping your arm over the back of your chair and just doing a little twist on both sides.
You guys are all doing this with us right now, right? We
Feel
can't
the
see you, but hopefully
thing.
you are.
And then laying your arm on your armrest and going over the top. And all of these muscles get really tight when we're sitting at our keyboards and our mouses all day long.
Oh, that feels really good.
Amazing, yeah?
I like that.
The other
Yeah.
one I love is what I call making a turkey neck. Nobody likes this, but it feels really good. And that is, you don't want to tip your chin this way, but you take your chin straight back and you give yourself a little turkey neck. For most of us, we will feel that all the way down between our
Oh,
shoulder.
yeah. I can feel that. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can do the same kind of thing with just stretching your neck, both sides. And these are just simple little stretches, but these are all the muscles that get really tight when we're working over the course of the day.
I feel a lot looser. Now, it's funny because before the call, we were talking about like some of the things we might talk about today, and you gave me a list of things. And when I saw chair yoga, I immediately thought of, and I'm going to hold it up right now, my yoga ball,
Yes.
which I'm sitting on. And I don't know if you in the audience, could you tell that I was sitting on a yoga ball? Because what happens when I sit on a yoga ball, I'm moving my hips and moving around a little bit. It's just not for balance. It's just more, it's the novelty that you're sitting on something that isn't just a flat object that you can move your body around. What are your thoughts on sitting on a yoga ball instead of an office chair?
Yoga balls are fantastic because they are exercising all those little core muscles that most of us tend to ignore, even when we're going to the gym on a regular basis. And so they help to activate all of those core muscles and help us to ground a little bit better onto the space. And we don't get so just slumped when we're on a yoga ball, right? It forces you to sit up tall. You don't have as much back support, and so you're using those muscles. So yoga balls are great.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually change my video settings just a second
Yeah.
and show you all a chair that I alternate with the one that I'm sitting in right now.
Sure. And why, by the way, while she's doing that, feel free if you have other questions, you can drop those in chat. If you're nervous about asking the questions, you can use the I have a friend technique. I have a friend who was wondering, or my coworker was wanting me to ask about this. You can use that technique that's in there. So feel free. All right, go ahead, Dr. Sina.
The yoga ball, I got this on Amazon and it was like 75, $80. It was not expensive.
Okay.
Sit in this chair, like
Ooh,
sit in this chair. So there's all kinds of different
I like
positions
that. Yeah.
we'll go into so that I can move my body over the course of the day and I'm not locked in to
Mhm.
be that one spot. So I love that thing.
Yeah. That's very cool. I think I've seen that before. And I'll ask you if after the show, if you have a link to that on Amazon that you could share with us if you feel comfortable doing so. And I know there's probably others out there, but it's always like when we see something like, oh, can you share that link with me? I'm always like, yeah, absolutely. So happy to share that with you. All right. So let's think of any other questions that you'd like to ask Dr. Sina. We'll wait to see if any other questions are coming in. While they are doing that, Dr. Sina, if you could, we talked a little bit about your business at the beginning. So remind us if people would like to learn more about doing business with you. I'm not going to launch LinkedIn right now because it seems like when I open up another window, we start to get the gremlins and the things that are coming out of the woodwork. So I'm not going to navigate to your LinkedIn right now, but could you please let us know, first of all, are you open to accepting LinkedIn invitations from our audience if they're looking to connect with you?
Absolutely. I really love LinkedIn and I love the guru that you are on LinkedIn. I have learned so much by following you. So
Oh.
yes, I'm very open to having conversations with people on LinkedIn. Absolutely.
Wonderful. It's funny when you say the guru of LinkedIn, I automatically think of my friend Jeff Young, who was on the session here today. He's not, but if you go to his LinkedIn profile, I think he actually calls himself the LinkedIn guru. Like he's claimed that title, so to speak. And it's very flattering when somebody calls me, but I get that association to Jeff Young. I just found your LinkedIn URL, Dr. Sina, and I put that inside of chat for individuals who might be interested in checking that out. And then also tell us your website. I'm going to put that into the chat right now, is sinasmithmd.com. So tell us a bit about your website. If we're interested in learning more about the services and offerings that you have, what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It's the first part of the website is about clinical care. So I see people in person and telehealth here in Chicago. Unfortunately, I've let the other licenses that I had in other states lapse over time. It just got to be, frankly, too expensive to keep all of those things going. So you do need to be a
There we go.
patient in Chicago. I do a lot of lecturing. So I was just at the NIH last month. I was the keynote speaker for National Health Sciences University.
Mhm.
And I do a lot of speaking on a wide range of health and wellness kinds of topics like we were talking about today. And then my first book was Demystifying Acupuncture. I don't know if you can
Share
see that.
that up on
Yeah.
screen. I think you'll have to stop blurring your background in order for the book to show. Let's try that again. Oh, look at
So
that. Demystifying acupuncture. Very good.
it's written as a Q&A book. So it's all the common questions that everybody has asked me over the course of the years. And then at the end of each question here are the next questions. I anticipate that you're going to have more questions, and is how to
I
find the
like
answer
that.
to the questions. And so this was really written for a skeptical but curious audience about acupuncture. And I'm getting a lot of good feedback on it, that it is doing what it was designed to do.
Love.
I'm taking a little bit of a break. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just love that expression. I'm gonna put it in chat right now. Skeptical, but curious. Because even the format when you talked about your book, you answered questions. I think any of us who are authors, when I saw that, I'm like, ooh, I could write a LinkedIn book that's like questions about LinkedIn and answers and then follow-up questions as a result. So that might give inspiration to our audience as well. If you're self-employed, you have an area of expertise, a body of knowledge, obviously, you probably get questions asked all the time. That would be a really great book format to follow, like the Q&A format, but I also like the skeptical but curious language because I think we can all relate to that. She's referring here to acupuncture, but I think a lot of us, we get our audiences that are coming to us because they are skeptical about whatever it is that we're an expert in, but they're curious about how it can help them. And then may even be the fact what brought you all, the audience, onto this webinar today, or whether you're listening to this on a podcast later, why are you still listening at some point? Because you only have 24 hours in a day, right? But you're curious about self-care and its self-care rather, and its linkage to you being successful as an entrepreneur. So really great. Now you said first book. Do you have other books that you published as well?
I'm taking a little time off from speaking right now because I'm working on my second book.
Oh, exciting.
One of the cool things about Chinese medicine, about traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture and herbal medicine, is that you can use face diagnosis to learn about somebody's personality type before they even open their mouth. So you
Interesting.
can do a little Myers-Briggs on their face, and then you can adjust the way that you talk to them to speak into their listening. And so I'm writing a book about how to do that and how to identify whether the person is fire, earth, metal, water, or wood, the 5 elements that we talk about in Chinese medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Then how to communicate more effectively. So my evil plan with that is that I feel like there's so much antagonism right now in our culture, and so much he versus she, us versus them, a lot of tribalism. And I would like for people to understand a little bit better how to reach out to each other, how to identify with somebody else. And I think this is also really helpful for small business owners, because when you're reaching out to somebody new, you never quite know what is going to reach that person. If they're a metal person, they're going to be really in love with rules. They're going to want to know what are the parameters. They're going to want a very strict outline, like that kind of thing. If they're a fire person, they want to know about the emotions of it. How is it going to make them feel? Are they going to be touched? Are they going to be inspired? What is the emotions that are going to come out of this? So the pitches to those two different people would be very different. And just looking at somebody's LinkedIn profile will give you some clues about exactly how you should then adjust your speaking for that particular person. So
All
I
right.
think it has a lot of broad ranges, and I'm really excited to start writing it. Should be out by the end of the year, I think.
Oh, good. I was going to ask you that question because I feel like there's another LinkedIn interview here, which is you just referenced that we could tell things by looking at their profile. I think that might be a fun discussion to have. So I'd like to put the ask out once your book is published and you're ready to start marketing. Reach back out to me, Dr. Sina, and I'd love to host you again. Maybe we can talk about your new book and get into some different areas. Sound good?
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. I want to go ahead and wrap us up for this afternoon. And Dr. Sina, I want to thank you for your patience as we were dealing with the tech gremlins. I think I did okay, though. I got us over here without too much screaming and yelling, right?
Yeah, you rolled with it just like a professional.
Yeah. All right, with that said, I want to thank everyone so much for joining us. When you do see that link, we'd love it if you could share it along on LinkedIn, or if you're listening to it on the podcast, maybe share it with a friend later. With that said, have a wonderful afternoon, and we will see all of you on LinkedIn. Take care, everyone.